Hey everybody, today I want to talk about a very sad story, and I think this is something that we actually see a lot among Jehovah's Witnesses, but we don't recognize it for what it is because we're so censored in talking about our plight. And I think what happens is that when there's turmoil in the congregation or among the body of elders or with anything that's going on, I think that you do think it's the truth, but somehow you feel so wrong about how things are handling. And I feel like a lot of people end up turning to alcohol because, as my stepmom put it, when she first came into the religion as an adult, she was noticing all Jehovah's Witnesses drink too much because that's the only thing they can do. That's what she said. And I remember even at the time thinking like, wow, I mean, I did see it a lot. But I think that in a lot of instances is that people use alcohol in a way to cope and numb themselves. And it's a huge problem in Bethel. They have an alcohol abuse problem because, again, it's the only thing that J-dubs are allowed to do. And yes, no, they're not allowed to be drunk, but it's kind of hard to prove if someone's an alcoholic or if someone is drunk all the time. So secretly drinking isn't as scandalous as like lighting up a doobie, for example. But you see it even with Tony Morris, who developed a drinking problem. You see him at the store buying booze. He seems to be drunk in a couple of videos of talks he gave, and it's just a slippery slope as a J-dub. So this story is about a brother who was a really good friend of ours, and we'll call him Mickey. Mickey was a good man. He had a very, very good family, and he was so zealous about the quote-unquote truth. I'm going to tell this story from a Jehovah's Witness perspective, so I'm going to call it the truth, even though it's a lie, but I'm going to tell this, and we'll just use those terms for the story's sake. So he was an excited young man, ministerial servant. I'm sure he pioneered. I'm not like 100% sure on that, but I'm pretty sure. And he was just zealous. And at Bethel, he had a really, really good support system. His family supported him. His family visited him. And his family were so kind that when they came to visit, they would take other Bethelites that Mickey was friends with out to dinner and paid for everyone. They were just really kind people. So he was raised in a very loving and supportive household. Father was an elder, but he was like very nice. And they were chill. So he meets his lovely wife, who is just a gem. She's very, very sweet. Also believes that this is the truth. So she pioneers. They ended up having kids, and she's pioneering and just like working really hard. They had like meeting for field service at their house, just really like deep into the truth, doing everything for Jehovah and the congregation. And I gotta say it for like these people who end up being kind of chill, that they have it so hard sometimes because since you're not a company man, since you're not hardcore following all the unwritten organizational rules, but you're just following the Bible and your conscience, these people have it very hard sometimes because you are looked down on. And I think that him and his family were like that. They were just kind of chill. So Mickey loved music, and he was talented. He played the guitar, he could sing, he was talented. And he started a little band with other brothers, which is not unlawful according to the Bible, but definitely frowned upon as a Jehovah's Witness. So if you're an organization person, that's going to be frowned on. That's probably not something that they really approve on this. So they probably have their eye on you already. So even though he was an elder, he had this gig where he would play every Wednesday night with the other brothers in a band, and it was a restaurant, and they just had a standing gig. His wife was supportive of that. He loved it. He was following his passion a little bit, and he was giving his all in the congregation. So nobody in his family really thought there was anything wrong with doing this. They were just having joy. So as it happens, it's New Year's Eve, and Mickey's band plays every Wednesday. Well, New Year's Eve fell on a Wednesday. But they're not staying till midnight. They're not participating in any of the partying or anything. They're just there for their usual time slot, which is like dinner, and didn't think anything of this. But the restaurant, of course, doesn't know all these weird J-Dub rules and that we hate New Year's Eve and hate any kind of celebration. So the restaurant is excited because they have a whole lineup for New Year's Eve. And they put Mickey's band in the newspaper along with all the other bands. And it says, come watch us for New Year's Eve. We have a whole lineup. It's Mickey's band and it's this other band. And, you know, all these bands lined up for a really great New Year's Eve evening. Mickey and his other friends, they had like nothing to do with this ad. They didn't even know about it. But it was such a big freaking deal in the congregation, and they ended up deleting him as an elder over this. I mean, just imagine the shock when this was not your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. You just happened to play regular music at a restaurant, which in J-Dub world is probably considered worldly, not exemplary, and now you're in the newspaper as a New Year's Eve lineup. And Mickey says, well, this is not my fault. You know, they put this ad in, they didn't ask us, they didn't let us know, and they probably thought they're doing a great thing. They don't know like the chaos that this resulted in. And the congregation elder said, well, we have to delete you because it's how it looks to the outside world. It's how it looks. It looks like you participated in New Year's Eve, and you cannot be an elder when you partied on New Year's Eve. And Mickey's like, I wasn't even there for New Year's Eve. I was, back home. I had nothing to do with this. And it's so funny. Jehovah's Witnesses are so concerned about how this looks to other people, about how the witness we're giving, you're giving a really bad witness because you look crazy. No one gives a care about whether this guy is playing at a restaurant on New Year's Eve. Not one person is thinking about it. Not one person sees the ad in the newspaper and thinks, oh, this is a bad person. He's playing music on New Year's Eve. I'm pretty sure that the real reproach on the witnesses is all the child abuse that they have, and probably how they treat their children and the fact that you can't celebrate anything and you have to constantly say, no, we don't do this, no, we don't do that. Which, when my kids were in school, I did think it was like absurd how many times I had to email the teacher for every little thing. I mean, they did a groundhog thing at school, and I was like, I am not writing the teacher. I am not even going to look into like if this is bad, because please let them do it. I felt so bad for the teacher. Valentine's Day, I'm sorry, we don't do it. Veterans Day, I'm sorry, we don't do it. And my heart goes out to the teacher who is trying to teach a whole class, who's trying to do something nice for the whole class, and here's like us always having to have like special treatment. And I do think, it's separation of church and state, but it shows that things like Christmas and Valentine's Day, they have nothing religious to do anymore nowadays. It's secular. So it's just, it got to a point where I just felt so bad for the teacher having to always say like, I'm sorry, my kid can't participate. Oh, I'm so glad that that's over. So anyways, so Mickey gets removed as an elder, and the whole ordeal and how they treat you and how the other elders talk to you and how when you fall from grace, you're like marked and viewed as like dirt. It's the same story with my grandpa, who didn't do anything. But my grandpa said at the time, it would have been better for me to have gotten disfellowshipped for, he didn't do anything. But if I had gotten reinstated, everyone would welcome me back. But when I'm blacklisted like this and my reputation is tarnished, I feel like I can't fight it. Wherever I go, my letter follows me. And I'm this bad guy that they labeled, and I didn't even know what they wrote about me. And it's basically like he has a stink that you can't wash off, and everyone looks down on you. And that was the case with Mickey. It just was like he fell from grace, but it shattered him because I think he was so confused. And now I have to say that because you protect the truth, you feel like you can't really talk about it. And we were all really good friends. So I feel like he couldn't really be open and really talk about it because it's this culty thing where we don't want to talk about things that are negative. We don't want to say anything. So he silently suffered. And even though we were all really close, we didn't even really know what was going on. But in his despair, he started drinking. And I think he just started drinking his depression away because of this treatment that he had received. How the congregation treated him so unloving. Where is the love? Where's the love that they proclaim that they have? And especially in situations like this that are so ridiculous, where they treat you so crappy when you didn't do anything. Where's the love and compassion that Jesus showed? And so what I think, and I do not know this for a fact, but what I think in hindsight is, I think that Mickey started to learn the truth about the truth and started waking up with a wife who is a pioneer, and she's trying to do right, and she's probably trying to work really hard to have a good view in the congregation. They had two really cute kids. Our kids were all friends. We loved hanging out with them. And then he started spiraling, and it was maybe also because he started to wake up. And the reason I think that he also woke up is because he started growing out a beard when beards were not okay, and he started to get tattoos. So the spiritual person that he was before, I cannot even see him. I didn't even recognize him. But also he looked really rough because he was drinking a lot. And to me, it now that I'm out, I think that's what happened. This cruel treatment seemed to have woken him up and had him spiral, and then he couldn't get anyone else out, so he just suffered. He recognized it's not the truth. You have the kids in it, your wife's in it, your whole family's in it, and if you see it for what it is, it's like the Matrix. You can't undo it. You can't put the genie back in the bottle. Once you see it for what it is, there's really no going back. It is a blue pill, red pill moment. Do I want to know or do I not want to know? But once you know, that's it. You've seen behind the curtains and you recognized it. And I do think that that's what happened. So they didn't really live close to us, but we were always in touch. And we hadn't heard for a while. And suddenly the wife is pregnant with a baby. And they're struggling in their marriage. She's probably completely confused. And I feel compassion for her too. From her perspective, this is a horrible thing to go through. She doesn't understand what's happening to the guy that she married. He's not the same person anymore. And he's probably depressed and rightfully bitter and hurt and now drinking a lot. And now she ended up being pregnant, and she texted me one day out of the blue that she found him dead because he drank himself to death. And he never even got to meet his baby. She had to do the funeral pregnant, and it just was so heartbreaking. And my heart goes out to her too, because she's still in it. She's running this endless marathon, working herself to pieces now as a single mom with kids and a baby in tow, with this grief, because they were a beautiful couple. They were both so in love, so beautiful. And from her perspective, she married a Bethelite, like a really good guy. He really was a good guy. And she is a good woman too. And the whole thing is just tragic. And my heart is just hurting for them, and hurting for her, hurting for him, hurting for the whole family. And when he had passed away, he had gotten disfellowship because of all the drinking, which is just absolutely the worst thing that you can do for someone who has an alcohol problem. Alcoholics or addicts or any sort, like, need help. Putting them in a shame cycle with disfellowshipping them is the worst thing that can happen to them. They need help. So this fear of getting disfellowshipped if you keep drinking is just going to make the problem worse. So how cruel Watchtower is to disfellowship people when we understand so much now about substance abuse and the psychology and the health and how it's a disease, and we're going to disfellowship people over it. How cruel they are. So Mickey was disfellowshipped when he passed away, so he didn't really even have a proper funeral. But what also broke my heart is, besides the fact that he had a proper funeral, is that, on his obituary, it was all like, please don't donate to us. Please donate to the Watchtower Society at jw.org. And it just made me want to shout. She's a single mom with several kids. Who needs the money most? You, girlie, you. But she probably felt such shame that, the way her husband died, that he was disfellowshipped, that she wanted to, reckon it. And how sad, any difference than, what the Catholic Church does when they take money from people on their deathbed to send them off into heaven. I mean, it's just so sad. So she asked people for donations to the Watchtower Society, and it just broke my heart, especially if he really did wake up. This is the last thing that he wanted. He would have wanted his wife and kids to be taken care of. And this whole story, it just shows how the Watchtower Society ruins people's lives, because the wife is affected. He was affected. The kids will forever be affected. Had they just been these regular people that had a family life, this whole dumb problem wouldn't have happened. It's such a ridiculously dumb problem, a moot point. It does not matter when you're in the world. This is like a made-up, stupid problem because he played music on New Year's Eve. This whole thing happened. So I wanted to tell this story, but I also want to just say that everybody involved in this was really a good person. And it makes me so sad. And this is like in honor of Mickey, who just had a huge heart, who I really respected as a person. As a matter of fact, so much so that one of my kids is kind of named after him. They have the same name. We would always take pictures of them because we always said, yeah, I like the name, and it also reminds us of Mickey because Mickey has such a good heart. So my heart goes out to everybody, sending much love to the family, to the kids. I hope that the kids end up finding freedom and can find help with counseling and continue to live a life away from the organization. I hope they find their way out, and I hope they seek help. So I leave you on this note. This is in memory of Mickey.